kind of plateauing off, and that's because right now all the breeding's stuck south of the river, which I think might be the next slide. Yep. So even though we've done really well and the population's growing, these are all telemetry locations from animals that have been wearing collars. This is from the 80s to now. So these locations are multiple locations from one animal. So that's why there's so many. It's not just who knows how many cats collar all over the years. And if you notice from Lake Okeechobee, and here's the Coosatchee down to Fort Myers, all those pink dots, which are females, are all south of the river. And the only thing you see north of the river is blue dots. And these little red triangles, those are mortalities or injuries usually from the road. And those were all males. But down here we pick up roadkills that are female, male, kittens. There's no discrimination. But there have been no females north of the river since the 70s that we can confirm. Our houndsmen treat a female on a ranch in Glades County in the 70s, in 1972 or 73. But we haven't had a photo or a roadkill since then. We get lots of reports, and I would love to be able to prove it, but so far we don't have any verified report, something we can verify of a female north of the river. So, like I said, we've had cats, with collars. The blue is with the VHF collars, the traditional kind. You have to go out and track it yourself. The orange is a cat that had a GPS collar. This is still that same map. I kind of blew it in and looked at this kind of Panther outreach area that has to do with my job. And it's about trying to get cats to recolonize, not expand, because expansion makes it sound like they never were there. Recolonization, they're getting back to where they used to be. So these males that have relocations for north of the river were collared south of the river and swam, and we got data from them. So we know that they've been able to live up here, and they kind of stick on the ridge in the middle because that's where most of the good habitat's left. That's not too patchy. But that doesn't tell us everything. So they started the Panther reporting website in 2012, and this is where the public can go in, and it's got a little Google map. So even if you don't know the UTMs or the Latin long, you can just pinpoint it on the map, upload a photo, write a description, and this has been very, very, very helpful. I mean, we can't cover everything ourselves. So since when they started in 2012 up to June of 2013, there's been 649 records. The gray of ones that we can't verify, and that just means if it didn't have a photo and it's just a description, we can't verify it. Doesn't mean that it might not have still actually been one, but we can't verify it. Or if it had a photo and it ended up being something else, because that happens too. But of those, we were able to verify all of these pink ones. So I mean, we're getting locations that we wouldn't have had otherwise. I don't know what this guy was doing.
I was going to say there's one up on there's another one swimming up there by the panhandle.
He was like going for oysters, I'm not sure. So
when somebody was having one too many runs on a boat.
But this is Carlton. Those locations right there, they were from like 2009, I think. So of those 649 records, 88% of them couldn't be verified because they just didn't have photos or something. But of those, 5% were verified as Panther, and that's 5% of 649 that I didn't have before, or we didn't have before. So this has been fantastic. And I brought the little magnets with me that have the sightings website. You take those with you and tell everybody if they see some, and take the track guide and find tracks. So that's helped. This is again that same kind of map where I'm looking at kind of my focus area where I work, and all these little green pluses are where there's been a confirmed sighting. So either from that website or from a camera that I have or someone that sent it to us or whatever. These have all been confirmed, and then the red, again, is the same mortality or injury thing. And all the little yellow dots are cameras that I monitor that I've put out on public and private land. I have 30 cameras out, and I'm just about to order 10 more. So I'm constantly looking for places. You'll see there's a big gap in here. It's really tough to get in here because it's mostly mosaic land, and it's just hard to get access in there. I'm working on that. I actually have a contact there now that has let me out in the Hardy County land, but I'm still working on DeSoto. So you again just kind of see this focus kind of along the ridge, but I mean they'll get in some weird places. We had a roadkill in Jacksonville a few years ago. Roadkill outside of Tampa. Where's that one? Oh, it's underneath the Hillsborough word. But there was a roadkill right there on I-4 a few years ago. We had one shot in Georgia, 2008, by a hunter who said he knew it was a cat, but he said I was in Georgia, so I just didn't think that it would matter. Like it couldn't be. It's not protected, right? Well, it's still protected. It's endangered. It's a federally endangered species. He got prosecuted, and not probably as much as he should have.
Did he lose his hunting license?
I'm not sure.
That would
But I
have
think
been,
they
that would have
fined
been the
him.
biggest thing, yeah.
They fined him.
That would have hurt.
But the big challenge is potential panther habitat across the state is about half and half public and private. But when you look at south of the river, it's about 60% on public land. So Big Cypress, Fat Strand, Panther Refuge, lots of really contiguous public land. Once you get north of the river, it's 60% private. So it's a challenge to be able to protect that habitat and work with the private landowners. So that same outreach area I was talking about, that's that potential panther habitat was modeled, a couple years ago. About 15,000 square kilometers. Of that, about 5,000 is already protected in some kind of public land. Avon Park Bombing Range is a big one, Babcock and Carlton. But and then another like 1,500 is some other kind of conservation program, like a wetland reserve program. But that's 1,900 different landowners just in there. So that's a big challenge, and that's when they hired me. They're like, "Go make everybody ready for panthers." Okay, but it's challenging, but it's worked out. There's a lot of it you'll see down there is one person, one owner. But again, just looking at the cameras and see how successful they've been. There is a male in Highlands County. He uses Highlands and Glades. We lovingly call him Fatty. Uncollared male. He's been there for 3 or 4 years. We know it's him because he has a big belly that hangs down and rolls like a zoo cat. It's not normal. But there's lots of pigs. He's living high on the hog, literally.
He's a successful hunter.
Yes. That's where he doesn't eat people.
He's been over on his private property on the east side of 27. This is a different cat. Remember I told you there was one in Manatee County that's been photographed a few times.
Beautiful.
He's probably more like 140, the normal size. And this is Fatty again, but just over on the other side of 27.
He's a big boy.
Yeah,
He's a big boy.
we want to capture him so bad so we can put a collar and see what he's doing. But
Well,
unfortunately, sometimes sightings come in the form of a roadkill. This was in Lake Placid on 27 last April, 147-pound uncollared male. And what was crazy was that same exact night, we picked one up in Fort Meade. This was the night of the lunar eclipse, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Got hit by a car but lived. And we rehabbed him successfully and just released him in January. I don't know if anybody saw the news about that.
awesome.
Released him in Yosemite Prairie State Park. So he obviously made the choice to be living north of the river. So that's why we released him north of the river. First time we've ever done that. But we didn't want to put him back in Fort Meade because it's just not a whole lot of contiguous good habitat around there, very patchy, a lot more roads. So we thought, well, this is as close as we can get, lots of good habitat without as many roads. And he kind of bolted pretty quickly and kind of went back where he wanted to be. But then he's gone from there again. So he's really making the rounds right now. Probably trying to find a female, but we do occasionally see them give up on that and settle in and make a home range even when there's not a female. So yeah, he's between 3 and 4 years old, so he's prime. That's why he's really
he's
out
wanting
there
a girlfriend.
But like I said, I work with landowners a lot and trying to figure out what kind of incentive programs do they want. How can we protect panther habitat so we can create, retain what is left. We don't want to buy it or acquire it or anything like that. We just want them to keep their working lands working, keep ranching. Ranching is great for panthers. Panthers are an umbrella species, so if you got panther habitat, you got everything else underneath it. Just don't turn it into concrete. So that's kind of another portion of what we're working on. And that way the females will move across the river on their own. They can swim. They just don't have that push the way males do to take off and leave their home, where they're born. 100% of our panther stuff, salaries, law enforcement, research, monitoring, management comes from the license plate. We don't use taxpayer money at all. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. So if you ever want to contribute, it's only $25 for a panther plate. Eventually I'll get one, but I still have my Texas plate. And like I said, there's the sightings website, and also if you know a place that might be good for a camera, or you have a friend who has land or anything like that, feel free to contact me. I'm always looking for new places, and I know I went way over, but hopefully it's still exciting.
Can I just ask you a question about the bobcats?
Yep.
How many bobcats are around?
So there's a lot more bobcats. So a couple of reasons why you do see more and you think you see more. For one, they do really well around urbanization. So they'll have kittens and live right in your backyard. It doesn't bother them at all. Also, they have smaller home ranges, so you sometimes see the same one and you think you're just seeing other ones. Whereas a panther, 200 square miles, you might see him, but then it's a month before you see him again. So that's kind of two of the main things, and there's just more of them. So there are really just more of them.
There are, how many are there? Does anybody really know?
I have no idea.
Percentage-wise, maybe more than panthers.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like how much
there's
percentage-wise?
There's like thousands and thousands of bobcats. And it's because and panthers are actually generalists too. I mean, they like wooded areas, of course, and but they're still pretty adaptable. And there are places that they're using right now down in South Florida where they're running out of space that they wouldn't normally think. But bobcats are like the ultimate. They're just like coyotes. They do really well around urbanization. They adapt really well to all sorts of different situations, and they'll live in your backyard and don't bother them at all. So that's one of the main reasons. And like I said, also they just have smaller home ranges, so you just see them more often.
So do they disturb domestic cats and
Panthers?
bobcats?
Bobcats. So the biggest thing with domestic cats and bobcats and panthers is that feral cats or your pet cat that you let outside if you don't vaccinate them, but usually feral cats because they're not vaccinated, is that they can carry feline leukemia. And it's super contagious and it's very, very deadly. And we've had outbreaks in the panthers in the past. We had roadkill in Golden Gate Estates come up feline leukemia positive. It was a few months ago, so we really tried to get out and capture some cats that were on the periphery of Golden Gate Estates. You can't capture. We run dogs to capture and collar cats. You can't do that in Golden Gate Estates. So we try to keep them. And like I said, there's 100 and 180 cats. We only have like 30 with collars. So there's nowhere near. Sometimes people think we have them all collared. Oh, I mean we're close, and that's not the goal. We've never wanted to have them all collared. Collaring is just certain areas. It's to try to come up with population estimates because we've got a true camera grids, all statistics, and you mark recapture kind of thing. So that's part of it, and it's also to monitor females, so we can monitor kitten dens and look at what survival is. But we're not trying to collar them all. I mean, that's never been a goal. But we do vaccinate when we do have an animal in hand. But that's the biggest problem with feral cats is they will eat them.
Yeah, some people have a fear of bobcats, about them hurting their own pets.
I mean, they can.
They
can, yeah.
Well, we know cats shouldn't be outside.
Well, they say the average lifespan of a domestic cat, if it lives outside, is 4 years.
Because they do. I mean, they'll fight.
They can live to be 20 if you keep them in the house.
It's a rough world for a wild cat.
Yeah. But the biggest thing is, I mean, even TNR, if they can vaccinate, is the biggest thing. Like, I mean, obviously I'm a cat person.
No.
So I would never want to see anything be put down, but I do understand that feral cats are not good. So at the very least, TNR and vaccinate. And if you have a pet cat that you let out, make sure it's vaccinated. That's the biggest part. Because panthers and bobcats and coyotes, they'll eat dogs and cats.
Yeah.
They'll eat what's available.
Yeah.
You said that there's never been a female confirmed up in the north, and most of your sightings, they're all males. What's the reason that any sightings are males? Are there a lot more males than females, or are just the males their territory? In order to gain a female, they have to spread further?
So a couple of factors is, so when a male gets to dispersal age, he automatically has the instinct to take off and go a really long way away from his mom, because that's going to keep him from inbreeding with his mom. Females, when they get to dispersal age, they're what's called philopatric, which means they like to be around where they were born. And they very commonly will set up the home range that overlaps with their mom a little bit. So they don't go very far when they get to be dispersal age. So it's kind of taking them longer to run out of space. So it's not that they can't swim. These cats can swim. The close hatch is still a pretty daunting thing. I mean, even at the narrowest point where we've seen most of the dispersal happen, it's still pretty long, pretty far distance, and banks are really steep. And so, I mean, they can do it, but it's a challenge. And the biggest thing is that we usually just don't see females having that desire to just bolt. Males do it because they're trying to get away from mom, set up a new territory. There's already a male there. They kick them out. They keep going. So they think they're going to keep going, find a territory, and find a female. So that's why we've seen them get up there. And it's not that females can't. They had a female cougar killed by a hunter in Montana last year, I think. Had a collar. I don't know if the guy saw it. It's not illegal. I mean, you can hunt a collared cat animal, but when he tried to figure out whose it was, nobody in Montana was. It was a female. Nobody in Montana was doing research. It was from South Dakota. This female was on like 400 miles. So I mean, they can do it. It's just they don't usually have that push the way males do. So that's why we're trying to, right now we have females with kittens. At least in the last couple of years, a female had kittens on the property just south of State Road 80, which is just south of the river. So they're really close. So if we can just get them, we're trying to get them to make it on their own and not facilitate it in any way. A lot of people say, why don't you just pick one up and move it? But politically, that's not, people wouldn't want us to do that.
That's not guaranteeing that the cat's going to do okay either.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
you're
also
taking a big risk on an endangered species' life by moving it out of its territory.
And technically, it's in our recovery plan that we can do that with females. So like, we're technically allowed if we wanted to someday. But the landowners north of the river, that if we tried to do that, would be like up in arms. So that's at the bottom of the list.
So how do you, if the females aren't moving and you did this other breeding, how do you know what males are breeding with the females that aren't moving? And the males that took off, that are further north, are they part of that, you know?
So we, when was that? 2006, I think, was how long ago it was. They did a pedigree and figured out who everybody was related to genetically. We're behind since then. We still collect samples from every cat that we touch, whether it's a roadkill or a capture. So we have all the DNA for everybody else, and so at some point it'll get filled in. So we can tell who's contributed and who hasn't. But most of these males up north, depending on when they left, like the one that we just rehabbed and released, when we picked him up last year, he was between 2 and 3 years old, and he probably had not bred before he got to where he was, just based on his age. This old fatty, he's probably like, and I'm guessing from pictures, I've never captured him, he's probably 7 to 9, and there's no way to know. I mean, we've been getting pictures of him for 3 or 4 years. Maybe he lived down south for 3 or 4 years before he came up north. He may have contributed. But the ones who come straight across the river before ever breeding down there, they don't contribute. Genetically.
What river are you talking about?
Clusahatchee.
Wow, they swim there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So do you
they're
have
good
the
swimmers.
males below with the females? You have those, all that DNA recorded so that when the females?
We have anybody we've ever captured or touched in any way, whether they were a kitten or a capture or something, we have DNA. Or a roadkill or something. But there are cats out there that we've never handled in any way, so we don't have their DNA. But
of the 180 or whatever cats, how many of them have you touched?
ooh, that's a good question. Well, 30 have collars,
Yeah.
but some of those were handled as kittens, not the collared, but like the ones who. There are some that we've never captured to put a collar on, but they were handled as kittens. We pit tag them and give them an ID, and if they grow up to. Actually, no, we still wouldn't know. That's really hard to estimate. Like, I used to know the number of how many kittens we handled from when we started the program to now. I think it's like 400 or something, but 30% survival, so not all of those are alive. We've collared, let's see, 237 I think was the number we just caught, the last cat we collared this capture season like a month ago. So that's the 237th cat we collared. But that's from 1990 something
You've
to
got
now.
30 that are still active.
And the uncollared ID numbers that we use for like when we pick up a roadkill or something where it's not a collared cat, but now it's been collected and needs a number, is up to like, it's actually almost the same number now. So it's about 237 of those. So yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if we'd be able to estimate that.
In the Everglades, have there been any python incidents?
I get that question a lot, and we don't have any proof, I don't think. I think it's definitely possible a python could eat kittens in a den if they were small enough. But the thing there is, most of the pythons are still pretty far south. And there is a population, some of the panthers live in Everglades National Park. There's only like 8 cats down there, and they're not doing very well. I think there's only like 1 male. So that would be where that interaction would probably happen. But
Maybe the pythons are destroying its food supply. That's why.
I mean, they probably have some effect, but so far it's probably not a huge one. Not that they're not horrible and shouldn't be. I think a panther could eat one too, up to a certain size. I mean, maybe like 15 footers.
They'll eat a snake, definitely, if it's small enough.
Yeah. So. I know I'm probably taking too long and Pete can come,